The encampment of Israel, we're going to talk about today. This is going to be an extension of the encampment of Israel series that I had completed. This is a concept of the transitions of these groups along all 42 stops that they're going to be going along. My apologies, I meant to do a more in-depth video here, but I'm not going to get to it this week, which means I'm probably not going to get to this for another month. So while it's still fresh in my head, I'm just going to at least get part of this out here, and then I'll maybe do more of this later on. But I did a quick animation. I built an animation right here in PowerPoint, and I had uploaded this so you can see this separately, but I'll just play it here. What you have is I have 21 positions, and I'll show you how we get those, and then they loop back to get 42 total stops. So you'll see how these tribes are going to grow, and you'll see this sort of the changing of the shapes based off of these different colors are going to represent the different tribes, and then you'll see that we have our cardinal directions and then our ecliptic cross right here, and then so all of these different breakups of the tribes across these across their borders and across these cardinal lines. We've found significance to before. So again, we've got the tabernacle in the center here. Like I said, there's so much to this piece of the puzzle as well. So everybody should be, I got the model and I built the model. You can see it in that short I think I put up. I had the completed model up there, but it's everybody should be going in and get that book and understand how this is constructed, because there's going to be other details in this construction that are going to tie into everything else. And like I said, everything I'm doing with these numbers right here and the concept of the theory of this is just sort of like a scratching the surface introductory type thing. So there's going to be a lot more that needs to be drawn out. So need a lot more people looking at this, a lot more people looking at the physical construct of this tabernacle and what all of that means. And then there's more to that as well with the altar and everything else in here. But that's what this represents. So this is just sort of overlaying these different concepts. And so anyway, just play this and you'll see how this, you'll see how Levi grows right here between our two parameters. And I did a transition of Levi across Simeon here. I don't know if that's correct or not, but it's just something I did. And then you'll just see how everybody sort of grows over this period, and then they hit their break point and they go back the other direction. So you have Reuben here, Reuben and Zebulun right across this south compass line, and then we're just going to be tracking how the compass lines bifurcate the tribes, as well as the ecliptic cross and all this other stuff. So that's what this is. For those of you that probably saw it and they probably don't know what the heck this is, what it's all about. So that's a visual aid of sort of this the morphing and the changing of these tribes and their positions and how it relates, I guess, to the imagery of this. So where do we start? I guess we'll start with, I'll just pull up when I'm working we're looking at the actual numbers of this here. Oops, what am I doing? If I can get this I'll just pull it up all the way there. So when we're looking at no, I don't want to do that. Hold on. Sorry. Let me condense this a little bit. Okay, so one thing you notice, we're given two sets of numbers. So chapter 1 and 2 of the book of Numbers, we're going to get this set of numbers right here. And then in chapter 26 later on, you're going to get another set of numbers right here. So there's a couple things that pop out to you. For one, you're going to notice that some of these numbers are, you're seeing they're used in both censuses, the 53,400 for so for Naphtali, and then later in Asher, and then you're going to see 40,500 for Ephraim here, and then it's going to be 40,500 for Gad in the second set of numbers that we get. So one thing that I ended up doing was I just looked at the average of these two to find a middle point to see if that would communicate something to me. And of course you're going to hit on this 40,500 number, ends up being the average for Benjamin. Now Benjamin, you'll notice, has a 354 number, which we associate that with a lunar pattern. And then for Ephraim here, you'll find the average is a 365, which is a solar pattern. So, you know, we're told, again, 45,650 is Bereshit. You're supposed to start with Gad. So really, if you look at this, 45,650, you know, again, the start and this number is you're beginning to understand all of this, is going to lead you to a significance of 40,500. And then from here, we can go and see how 40,500 is going to be linked to what we got here? Oh, Ephraim. Yeah, Ephraim. We find significance to 325 as well when we look at the, I think in that astrolabe video. But yeah, you'll see how these are all just, they're going to be tethered. And then we're going to see a moon number here. So moon to 40,500, right? And our average 40,500 to a sun and to the beginning. So we've got some interesting things happening with those numbers that are kind of cluing us in. So one thing we can look at is finding this average, right? And then maybe finding that these other number sets that we're going to find in between these number sets are important. Another thing that you're told in the scripture, I can't remember where it mentions this, but it's talking about you know, those that will increase and reduce. And so basically it's telling you that you need to be paying attention to the changes that are happening with these numbers. So what we do is you're going to look at right here, this is going to be the total number of change you're going to have. This is the absolute value of change between your two given number sets. So that number is going to be right here for all of these tribes. And then what you'll find is they all have, you're going to see they all have a common denominator of 10. Once you reduce all of these down by 10, which would be right here, right, you're gonna see that 277 is a prime number, so you can't further drop all of these numbers any more than you already have at this point. So this sort of gets me down the path of, okay, we can maybe break up these into 10 steps from point to point, which actually ends up giving us, because you're going to count the ends, so you end up with 11 total, a count of 11 different sums in between. And this gives us clean numbers as we're going from number to number, end to end. So this is our step change. And then as we did a study before, we did a study previously on the census changes, but we see that you'll notice that some of these are increasing, some are decreasing. So our step change here, obviously we got increasing of Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Reuben's decreasing, Simeon's decreasing, we got Gad decreasing. Levi, this is our found number again. Remember, we found these numbers. But Levi's increasing, decreasing for, who we got here, Naphtali? No, we've got Ephraim decreasing. Increasing Manasseh, Benjamin, Dan, Asher, and then Naphtali is reducing as we're progressing from left to right. And of course, as soon as you hit this break point, you're going to be going the opposite direction. So, those that were decreasing will be increasing, those who were increasing will be decreasing, because you're going the opposite direction. So this was our tool that we had done before, looking at the census change. Again, we had looked at degrees for all of the numbers, we looked at ratios, and then we looked at the difference of the ratios. And this is where we noticed that once we figure Levi in here, and we know that we have 8 increasing and 5 decreasing, we see an 8 to 5. This is a sort of Fibonacci pattern of 8 to 5 and 13. And then we're going to see that the total of that ratio is that's our golden angle number. You can go look at the golden angle video if you don't know about that. And then, so just some interesting that we noticed with just the ratios. And then we've got this concept of the, in Deuteronomy, later on you're going to have the blessing and curses. And there's interesting things that pop out with this as well. One of those is going to be right here, this number for your those that are being cursed, the change. If you add up all the change, absolute value, you're going to get this number, which is going to be, we find that 233 number is going to be relevant. So that's 140 times 233 is going to be right there. So generally when I see that 233 pop up, that's usually an indicator that you're kind of on to something, I think. But at any rate, we're looking at, again, the change, who's increasing, who's decreasing, and then we're also looking at when they get to the mount there, because some of these have to lay blessing and some of these have to lay curse. So getting back over here, where was I going with that? So we have a step change happening, and then also we're looking, okay, well, you know, we're going to run into 42 different stops. So we know when we actually go in and we're going to read up on these, and this is going to be in Numbers 30, chapter 33, and all of these verses right here. These are going to be your descriptors, but we're going to see that you know, they got these the destinations. So you're going to be leaving from one spot of the camp and pitching in the next. Right, so we end up with 42 total stops taking place, and some of these stops you'll notice are their descriptors here. So when we're actually looking at the scripture here, and we're in Numbers 33, and we're watching this as these are taking place, you know, it's very mechanical. You know, you see that it's just, you know, some of these it's just, okay, it's just the place and you're moving, but sometimes there's extra information added in, and so we want to pay attention to some of those things. And so, you know, there's a few places where you're going to see the wilderness being mentioned, and that's going to be happening, and in some of these points, wilderness of Sin, wilderness of Sinai, and the wilderness of Zin. So it's kind of interesting that we've got a similar sort of noun or proper name there that we're using. But yeah, then there's other descriptors in the middle of here. So, you know, what does all of this stuff mean? Down here you're going to see that once you get to Mount Hor, you know, this is where Aaron dies, and you've got all of this strange stuff happening, and you're told in these blessing and curses there's all this going on about before crossing over and everything. You're going to lay the blessings and curses on the mount, and that's where you're going to divvy them up. You're going to divvy these groups up into the Deuteronomy 27 it is. But yeah, this is where it's going to tell you that you're divvying these up. And it's going to be, you know, specifically Simeon, Levi. Levi is actually mentioned here. Judah, Issachar, and Joseph, right? And Benjamin. So we've got Joseph, not Ephraim and Manasseh, but Joseph is mentioned, and Levi is mentioned. You know, we've been leaving him out in all of our number counts and all of these other things up to this point. And then, of course, on the curses will stand Reuben, Gad, Asher, Zebulun, Dan, and Naphtali. Might be something to the fact that you've got the way they're attaching Vav sometimes to these. I don't know. More to look at there. But at any rate, so what to do with all this information? We've got 42 stops. The importance of 42 we've found already. So because we know that we see this with You're going to find this in the tabernacle construction. But we have pi right here, and we're going to see that if we have 42 and we're going to divide this by pi, we know that this is tied into a moon sidereal and a moon synodic period. So that's going to be our ratios right here of 13.36 and 12.36. And we know that that pattern of numbers is going to be equivalent to our number for Levi in the first census divided by 605,800 and multiplied by 360 degrees. We're going to see that's that first number that we find for Levi, and we're going to see that that's a similar pattern of numbers right here. So, and then we also can we'll do this real quick for you, but if we take the square root of equals the square root of 5, we'll build our phi in here again, plus 1 equals this divided by 2. We know that if we take this value and we multiply it by phi squared, we are going to end up with 3.5. And you do see this mentioned with times and a half, and like I think it was Jessica was just pointing out to me that we got 42 time and a half of 12 months, right? So that ties into 42 again right there, kind of interesting. But at any rate, again, these you see that these are going to be your moon synodic and sidereal period. So if we're going to use the sidereal period, 365.266363 is going to be your solar or your sidereal sun period. And we're going to say this divided by this number right here. That's going to be our sidereal period for the moon. And then if we're going to take the sidereal for the sun again, 365.256363, and we're going to divide this by this other figure that we have right here, we know that that's going to be our synodic period of the 29.53. So yeah, I mean, not exact, super exact, but I mean, you know, it's significant. That's the nearest whole number with all these that you're going to actually find something like that that's noteworthy. So yeah, so 42 showing up. We see ties with a bunch of other things with it here, so it's significant. How that ties in, we'll have to see, but for right now, we know that we've got these 42 stops. We're trying to make sense of all this stuff. So, and what have we done? We've looked at the averages. Oh yeah, so Joseph. So when we get the blessings in cursive, Joseph is being mentioned. So this is our number right here for Ephraim, and this is Manasseh right here. And we see that the sum of these two is 72,700, and that is going to be this number right here, right? So this line right here would be will be Joseph. It's the sum of those two together. So why is that interesting? Well, again, our step change between all of these is going to be our least common multiple, and so every one of these that we're moving from left to right, we're going to be dropping. Every step of this is going to be 190. We're dropping 990, 310, right? We're going to be adding 277, adding 3710, you know, adding 515, so on and so forth. This is our step change from position to position. And we know that we can only get clean numbers for every 10 positions here. So because we've got our middle position and we've got 10 positions to the right, and we're trying to get to 42, so we want to extend this to the left now 10 positions to see what we get. Now, which direction we would go, you know, we're going to start running out of room if we try to go to the right. If we say that this is our break point and this is our center and we're trying to get to 21 to the right here, we know that we're going to start running out of room, because when we actually look at the breakup, the charts of these guys, you see that you know, by the time we went from this first given number to the second, you see Dan is, you know, we don't want to get past the compass line here for Dan. If we go another another what do you call it? Another 10 outs, because we'll be past the line right here. And so, also I think we're going to be out of tolerance for Judah, maybe, or close to it, if we go another 10, because you see that he's drifting closer and closer to this compass line. But we're definitely going to be out of balance with Dan, and Dan is supposed to be the scales. So, I mean, we could go 5, we could go to another midpoint, and we could make it work, but we're looking for a range of 10. So what I did was I ended up extending it this way to our left, and so we got 10 more positions that we're going to go, and we're going to step down incrementally until this point here. And you see that Judah's number now has become 72700 when we extend this number set all the way to this other range. So we're at 72700 for Judah, and then we also are going to see 61,000, which we're going to see this number show up in the spoils in, I think, chapter 33 of Numbers. It's going to be talking about the asses, and of course we see this number tied into again with our ecliptic number of 39,650. That's going to be your primary what do you call it, factor. Is going to be 61 times 65, I believe, for that. But at any rate, so that seems to be a pointer now. How can we verify that? Well, again, remember that we've got these blessings and curses, and then we've got tribes that are ascending, and we have tribes that are not ascending. One other thing, I think, before we get into this real quick, I did want to touch on Levi. So Levi comes down and grounded at 430. You remember 4070 is up here. But remember that you've got other denominations for the Levites. You got over a month, and then up to over a month and like 30 to 50. So if you're thinking all the way down here over a month, and we're in that small number, remember that number was 85, 80. And so we can look at 8580 minus 430, and we're going to get 8150. And why is that significant? I'll show you in a second. And then we had two other values for. Remember, we had either 22,300 or it's 22,000, and we're given both of these, and you're to attempt, I think, on both of these. But remember, our other number for Levi ends up being 4070 later on down here. So if we're going to look at our over or between 30 to 50 range, and we're going to look and see what the difference is between these, and well, we'll just do that. We'll just do 4070 here. And we'll copy this down. So our 22,300 figure gives us, that's interesting with the 182, because we see that tied into Levi's step change. But also this 179, you're going to see that 8150 for both of these end up having a denominator or a divisor of 163. So if you look at this figure right here and divide it by 163, it's going to be 110 to 50. And we know that the Levi, when we're looking at that 5 to 1 ratio and an 11:8, we see that that's related to the square root of 5. So you do find that sort of tie. And then again with this 8150, remember, I don't know if anybody's looked at my videos on these clean tables for a 20 to 1. Remember, a 5 to 1 becomes 11.5, but a 20 to 1 will produce an 8150 right here, strangely enough. And we see that 8150 is also going to be, if we're going to add together 4070 and our Reuben West bifurcation right here, 4080, that's going to be 8150. So in this snapshot of time, you're going to end up with an 8150 of this Levites and Reuben right here. That's sort of relative to the difference in that other snapshot in time, that whole other end of this, 180 degrees out, you're going to have 8150 show up with the Levites again. So, you know, that might be something. I thought it was kind of interesting, but probably more convincing to people will be this concept of the blessings and curses, because you're going to see that, you know, we end up with 8 once we find the number for Levi, and we see that he's an ascending number. He's one of the ones that are ascending as we're going left to right here. We end up with 5 that are ascending, and we end up with 8 that are ascending and 5 that are descending. And then similarly, remember our blessings and curses. Well, we end up with 7 of these that are blessings. These 7 are blessings, and then we have 6 right here that are curses. Now we want to look at of the ascending, how many of the ascending are blessings? Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 that are blessings, and of the ascending that are curses, we have 1, 2, and 3. Again, we have a 5 to 3, a 3, 5, 8 sequence, right? So that means that our descending, we're going to have 1, 2, 3 descending curses, and we're going to have 1, 2 descending blessings. So what does that do for our numbers right here? So if we were to look at, if we're going to look at the totals of these, and we're going to say, okay, we're going to count all of the ascending numbers, and we're going to just, I'll just do this, I'll do this like this so we can just see the sum down here. But we're going to count these together. So ascending, we're going to have these 8. And you see that we're at 299,430. So the ascending right here, we'll put 299,430. And then the descending, we'll count up the descending. It should just be the difference of our 605,800. And you see that we're at 306,370. So 306,370 for this. Okay, now we want to look at what is our total for the blessings now. So if we're going to look at the total for blessing, it's going to be Judah and Issachar and Simeon and Levi, Ephraim, Manasseh, Benjamin, and you're going to see that we're at 29,930 for our blessings. So again, 29,930 for the blessings, and you see that we're adding a different set. So you have 2 different sets of numbers that you're adding, and what you're doing is you're ending up like your curses right here. Again, we'll add these up just to confirm, but you're hitting. This is the point at which these are going to be even. So your tribal numbers for your grouping of ascending and descending, this is where it becomes even with your, right here, 306,370. Right, so these 2 figures are going to become even at this point. And you know, if you basically multiply this out, I've got from chapter 2 to 26 ascending grouping, and then the 7, and then adding Levi in here, and you see that we're at 29,930, and then 29,930. So this is the place where it's equal. As we go down the way here, you see that we're going to start getting further and further away from each other, and those numbers aren't going to line up. So these numbers line up when you do this, and you figure that these census orders, or at least you're going to extend these census numbers out to 21 total sets. You're going to find that right here on this first this limit, essentially. This is balancing out. These are balancing. So, another like if you weren't already confident in that we had the numbers correct with this finding of Levi, the 4070 and 2250, this should bear witness, I think, for you that that this is on the right track, and that we can further this down. Now, where exactly does this fit? Now, we know that this number right here, this number, we know we're given these numbers in Exodus and then twice in the beginning of the book of Numbers. So we figure that we can probably put this period, I put it right here, as soon as you come out, that this number is where you're going to be given. And so we've got our middle point, our census average, and then we've got our chapter 26 number, our sort of limit before we start going the other way. I did a sort of like a flow right here. If we're going to count this as 1, we're going to hit 11, 12, and then we're going to go all the way back here, and then we're going to wrap back around to 42. But so this would be our middle point, 11, right here. And you see that these numbers that we're hitting, when we line it up this way, you'll see that we're hitting like from the end of the wilderness and into the wilderness to the other end. So basically everything that we're told in this book of Numbers, from the 2nd to the 26th chapter being the wilderness, it aligns with this, if we're going to say that those two periods are right here. Those two snapshots in time are going to be relative to these stops. And then, so what does that do for these other points? Well, this would be our other midpoint. Some of these all of our descriptors are mostly up in here between, basically where this book is taking place. But we see that when we wrap back around, that would be our middle point again. I don't know if there's any meaning to any of these other names of the stops in between, but you'll see that when we hit that 1, when we go back and hit 1 right there, and we're at this point at this, where this is all balancing out and hitting even, you're going to see that, that's this Kadesh, Mount Hor, Edom. This is where this is in the wilderness of Zin again. You're just getting out of the wilderness, and this is where Aaron is dying at 123 years old. And again, that's a Lucas number, 123, right? That's the Lucas number associated with, I can't think right now, 55. So, yeah, very interesting that this hits in this place. And like you said, I'm in the process right now of looking at building tables and a presentation of every one of these. I got to come in and look at all of the bifurcations that you have as you're coming through. I got to find all of the factors of all of these to see if we can't draw out some more information from these, but should give you peace of mind. You just find so many interesting things, like 322. That's the only Lucas number we see. Well, the only other one we really find is going to be 199 in here, and that's also in Manasseh, right? So several little interesting things that you find in here like that. Again, 13750. You're going to find patterns for the like I said, solar, lunar, all kinds of fun stuff in here. But at any rate, I wanted to get this out before I sort of close up. I'll probably be closed up for a month and I won't get to this. So at any rate, hope you enjoyed this, and we'll be seeing you on the next one eventually.